Hello all, my name is Prabhakar. I'm making a series of videos available to you to learn Amazon Web Services. And in this session, I'm going to talk about a code deploy by integrating a GitHub and doing the deployment into the EC2 instance. Here is the content for today's session. I'm going to set up IMA rules, and I'm going to set up a EC2 instance as a deployment server, and I will integrate GitHub as a source repository, and I will set up the application and the deployment group into the code deploy, and create a pipeline for the automatic deployment, so that as soon as you push the source code into the GitHub repository, then it will automatically detect the code changes and it will trigger the deployment into the EC2 instance. AWS Code Deploy is a fully managed deployment service that automates the software deployments to a variety of computer services such as EC2 and Fargate and the Lambda and your own on-premises servers. Code Deploy makes it easier for you to rapidly release the new features, so that you don't require any high-end configurations and any high level of the configuration in order to do the pipeline and all. So you can simply go ahead and then create a code deploy and pipeline, so that you can choose either the GitHub or either the S3. And as soon as you copy the source code, it will do the deployment as it wants automatically. And it will also help you to avoid the downtime during the application deployment. So how it is going to avoid the deployment? So I will explain that. So during the code deployment, and we have a centralized control, so that so in code deploys allows you to easily launch and track the status of your application deployment through the AWS management console. And so it will also minimize the downtime, so that code deploy helps to maximize your application availability during the software development process. So with the help of load balancing, we can achieve this, so that I can create a 5 EC2 instance which have a load balancing, so that when you start deployment, okay, it will not deploy your application into all 5 instances at a time. So it will deploy the application into the first instance, and once that first instance is up and running and it is healthy, then it will go ahead and then install the remaining 4 instances. Okay, there will be very less downtime on this case. So this is an example which I'm going to talk about in today's session. So as an end user, I'm going to create an application, and so that application I will push it into the GitHub repository. So as soon as I push in, the changes into the GitHub repository, so I will integrate GitHub repository into the code deploy. And inside this code deploy, so whenever the changes are detected, then so it will automatically trigger the deployment, and the changes will be deployed into the EC2 instance. Let's go ahead and then check that, okay, how we can create a application, and how we can create the application and deployment group and the deployments, and how do you trigger your deployment using the code pipeline. What I'm going to do here, so here I'm going to create an EC2 instance here, and that EC2 instance which I'm going to use it for the deployment. And here I'm going to create the 2 roles. Okay, so one for the code deploy, and another for EC2 instance. Okay, and then after that I'm going to create a security role, and which has port 80 is exposed on this. Okay, then after that inside the code deploy, okay, so and inside this code deploy I'm going to create an application here. Okay, so and I'm going to create a deployment group here. Okay, so and once that is done, then after that we have a code pipeline. Okay, so where we can integrate this code pipeline with GitHub, where our source code is already there. Okay, so the role creation and other stuff already covered in my previous video session. Okay, so here what I'm going to do that, okay, I'm going to create an EC2 instance, and go to services, and click on EC2. And once you land the dashboard window, okay, you can click on launch instance. So here I can provide the set of configuration for that. Okay, so go to you can choose any of the animation image here. Okay, so these all details I already covered in detail in my previous video, previous session. So how to create a code deploy pipeline by using the S3 as a source. And in this demo, I'm going to use GitHub as a source repository here, and go to next. and I'm going to launch only one instance. If I want, I can select the multiple instance also. So let's go ahead and then create a multiple instance. Okay, here I'm going to create the 4 instances, and I'm a role. Okay, so this role part, okay, you can go to the roles, and here I have created 2 roles and 1 role. This role I have created it for the EC2, and this role which I have created it for the code deploy. Okay, so these roles already covered into my previous video session. Okay, go ahead and then please check that. I have specified that link into the description below. So, and after that, so I already mentioned that, okay, go to Windows 2020 and AWS Code Deploy. Okay, so here, I have specified that, okay, set of required packages which are required. So as a part of installing the Code Deploy client, okay, so I have copied these all steps, and go here, copy all these steps, can specify down into the user data, so that once once your machine is rebooted, then it will install, it will execute all these commands, below commands. Okay, go to next, and here what I'm going to do, that I'm going to create the 4 instances. This is something different, like at a time I can install my application into the 4 different EC2 instances, and go to the next, add a storage, and I'm choosing it as a default storage. Go to the tags. This tags, I'm choosing it as a name, and here I can say EC2 installation, okay, deployment missions. Okay, if I say EC2 deployment, okay, missions, and go to the security group, and here my application which is exposed into the port 80. What I'm going to do that, okay, here I'm going to add a 1 more role. Okay, so here I can say that code deploy underscore security group, and the port which I'm going to choose it as a HTTP port 80 I'm going to expose, and I'm going to open it for the all incoming source. Go to the review and launch. So here I'm going to create 4 different instances. Okay, so number of instances are 4, and you can go ahead and then you can create only 1 instance also, that is also fine here, and launch. And as of now, I don't require any key pair because I'm not going to access that instance. Okay, and acknowledge that, and then launch the instance, and go to view instances. I have 4 instances which are running here. Okay, so and now it's time to go ahead and then so create. So this is the instance which I have created earlier. So now I have 4 running instances are available. Now it's time to go ahead and then create a code deploy here. Okay, so go to services, and you can type the code deploy. Okay, so choose that code deploy, and inside this code deploy, so I'm going to create an application, I'm going to create a deployment group, then finally I'm going to create the code pipeline so that it will automatically do the deployment for me, and choose the applications, and here I'm going to create an application. So already I have one, my app is available, and let's go ahead and then delete this app. Okay, this is my earlier app. Okay, delete this application. Go to the app application, and create application, and here I'm using my application name is, for example, like the banking application. Okay, banking app, and the compute platform. So here I want to deploy an application into the EC2 on premises. That's why I'm choosing it as EC2 on premises. If I want to do something lambda function, so I can do the lambda function. If I want to trigger the ECS, elastic container service, and so I can choose that option also. So here for this demo, I'm choosing it as EC2 instance. Select the EC2 instance and click on create an application. Now I have created an application. So as per the steps, okay, so once application is created, then after that I have to create the deployment group here. So you can click on the create a deployment group here, and inside this deployment group, I'm going to map my application into this deployment group. Okay, so here in that, okay, so what I'm going to do that, okay, you can say that, okay, banking app deployment group. Okay. And service role, which I have created the service role for the code deploy. That service role I'm choosing it here. And in place on the blue green, so this is already covered that. Okay, so in my previous video sessions. Okay, so can please go ahead and then check that. And auto scaling is not required for me for this demo. I'm choosing it as environment configuration is the EC2 instances, and which instances I want to choose. So while creating an EC2 instance, I have specified some tags, and my tag name is so EC2 deployment missions. Okay, there are 4 missions are available. I'm choosing that, and go down below. And inside that, so inside that, okay, so this deployment configuration, so do you want to install it to one at a time or off missions at a time? That means 2 missions at a time. Once the 2 mission installation is done, then it will go to the next 2 missions for the deployment, or all at a time. So I am choosing it as all at a time. And application load balancer is not required for this demo, so I will cover it in another demo. So this advanced options, these are more for the putting some triggers and roll back the deployment if something is failed. So, and create a deployment group here. So now I have successfully created a deployment group here. So the next part is that, okay, I want to create the code pipeline here. Okay, you can go to the code pipeline, click on the code pipeline, and inside that, okay, so create a pipeline. So here I already created an GitHub repository, that is the AWS Code Deploy using the GitHub. So where I have there are 2 files are available. One is index.html, and the second one is appspec.ml file. So inside this appspec.ml file, this is a very important. Okay, so we in this file we are going to give an instruction to the deployment manager, like, okay, where is my source file and where is the destination file I want to do the deployment, and what kind of scripts I want to install before, and what kind of scripts I need to use it for stopping an application, what is the timeout, and all the things I can specify it into this appspec.ml file. So, and inside that, inside the scripts, okay, so I have specified 3 scripts here. So if I say install dependencies, so it will install all the required dependencies. Okay, so this is how I already mentioned. I already maintained the code block here. Okay, so what you are going to do that. So here I'm choosing that. Okay, so my application underscore pipeline. Okay, this is a pipeline name which I'm choosing that, and advanced settings are not required as of now. So this will indicate that, okay, where you want to store the artifacts. So by default, it will store the artifacts into the S3. I'm leaving it as a blank and click on next. And source provider, okay, this is the very important point. In my earlier video, so I have selected source property as Amazon S3. That means that, okay, I'm going to copy my source code into the S3. So as soon as I copy my source code into the S3, then so the deployment will be started automatically by selecting the bucket and by selecting the object key here. So but this time for this demo, I'm choosing it as a Git bucket. So, and you can click on connect Git bucket. And once you click on connected bucket, so it will prompt you for entering the username and password in order to connect it to your GitHub and providing the permissions. I already connected that. So I have a setup the repositories available. So here I'm choosing that. Okay, so AWS Code Deploy. So this is the repository which I'm using, and the branch is a master. And go to the next, and the build provider. So this is not required. So that's why I'm skipping that. So if I choose the build provider as code build or maybe Jenkins, okay, I can do the deployment via Jenkins here. So I'm skipping this stage because my deployment is an automatic. As soon as I push the source code, there is no build deployer, and that option is, I'm not enabling that. Okay, and the deployment part, okay, so here the deployment provider, I'm choosing it as code deploy, so that via code deploy I'm doing the deployment here. After choosing that, okay, so here by default region is enabled, and we have to select the application which I have created, and we have to select the deployment group which I have created, and go to the next. Okay, so it will give the final preview, and click on create a pipeline. So now that's it. So after doing all these changes, okay, it will start doing the application deployment here. Okay, so and this deployment will be happen into the 4 missions at a time. Okay, let's go to my EC2 instances. Okay, let's check that. Okay, so what are their IPs, and so how do you access that application using the port 80? Okay, and here if I click on this, okay, my deployment is started after creating the pipeline. Okay, it will take a couple of seconds to minutes based on your EC2 instance configuration, as well as and the size of your application. Okay, so now it is it is downloaded the source code into all the 4 missions, and now it started the deployment. Okay, so let's wait for the couple of minutes. By that time, so I will walk you through that. Okay, so what are the EC2 instances which are created, and what are the IPs for the 4 missions? Okay, so here I have a total of 4 missions are available. Like instant, let me filter it out. Only running instances. Yeah. So here I have total 4 instances are there, and each instance there is a public DNS and public IPs associated for that. By using either IP or a DNS, I can access my application which is running into the port 80, because I have deployed my application into Apache. So, okay, so as per the script, okay, so if I go to the install dependencies, here you can find that, okay, here I'm going to install an Apache HTTPD, and by default its support is 80. Okay, so that's why I already enabled the security group for the port 80. Okay, that also you can see it here. So if you go down below here, you have security groups, and inside the security group, if you click on the inbound rule, so here you can find that, okay, the port 80 is enabled for that. Okay, so yeah, so let's go ahead and in this, okay, just refresh the page. Okay, so it will do the deployment into all the 4 missions at a time. So because we have selected that option inside while creating the code deployment option. Okay, so it is in progress now. The deployment is in progress. Okay, just wait for a couple of minutes. So if I go to the deploy and click on, this is in progress since 3 minutes ago. So if I click on the details, inside this details view, I can find that, okay, what is going on inside that, and I can find that exactly what kind of changes it is doing and what kind of events it is triggering that. Okay, if you see that, so there are 4 instances, and it is trying to install the and trying to deploy an application into the 4 instances at a time. Okay, just wait for a couple of more minutes. Okay, by that time I will put my video into the pause mode. Now deployment is succeed. So if I go to EC2 instance, and I have 4 EC2 instances are there. So if I copy first EC2 instance ID, and if I go here and paste that EC2 instance first ID here, so I can see that, okay, now my application deployment is succeed. So I can similarly, so if I go to the second EC2 instance and copy the ID, okay, and to make another window and to copy that ID here. So it is a 167 one, and go to third one, copy, paste it here. It's a 39 one, and similarly you can go to the fourth instance and copy this instance ID, paste it here. Okay, so here if you see that, okay, I have 3 instances, total 4 instances are there, and I did the deployment on all the 4 instances at a time. So if I modify my source code here, so let's take an example. Here is my application, and if I go to the index.html, and if I did any slight changes, or maybe if I modify source code, and if I push any code changes here, let's take an example. Wow, congratulations, Prabhakar, and you did it. Okay, and I modify this text, and if I save the changes, okay, before saving the changes, okay, let me go to the code block, okay, and code pipeline, and then save the changes. Once I save the changes into the GitHub, and now go back to the code pipeline and refresh the page. Okay, see if you see that, okay, so it automatically detect the changes inside a GitHub, and it triggered the build. Okay, now the build is triggered and the source code copying is completed. And now if I go to again So on any of the EC2 instance, and if I refresh that, okay, it will take some time to do the deployment. So because I have modified the code changes, and now it triggered the code deployment to the 4 machines at a time. Okay. So, and these all changes, it will automatically detect, and it will do the deployment for all the selected EC2 instance. Now, deployment is succeed, and if I go to any of the EC2 instance, and I can see the latest code changes. Okay. So whenever I do the deployment, and so it will pick up the latest code changes from the GitHub, and those changes, it will do the deployment. Okay. This is how we can use the code deployment, and we can integrate changes with the GitHub, and it will detect the changes inside a GitHub repository, and it will pull the source code from the GitHub and do the deployment into EC2 instances automatically. So, and I hope you get a chance to work on the code deploy and the GitHub integration and do the deployment into the EC2 instance. And we come to end of this video. Thanks for watching this video.